Star Wars Clone Wars Season 7, Episode 7, Dangerous Debt. So this, of course, was definitely the action episode I pretty much expected it to be. It didn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, because I thought for sure it was going to be like, all right, well, let's do a mission, and, which I thought was funny. They did even reference that, where it was like, why don't we do a mission to, help pay you guys off? And it's like, you already betrayed me. Why in the world would I trust you again? And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That does happen all the time in television, but they didn't do that. So it was kind of funny that they even made a joke towards that, because that's what always happens. People get captured, and it happens even in Star Wars. People get captured, and then you have to pay off the debt that you owe. So you do some other crazy mission, and it's like, all right, you're free to go. Honor among thieves type of stuff. And it was like, why would I trust you? That's stupid. No, you're staying in prison. And I was like, oh, that makes sense. That does make a ton of sense. So they kind of bucked the trend on that very generic sort of tropey storyline. But they did do something that was also unique and in a very odd way, which was it was a full circle episode. They went from being in prison to having, like Rafa gets tortured and then she's sent back, and then Trace goes and she's about to get tortured. She fakes fainting, beats up the people, sets off an alarm. So everyone's running, down the hallway, and so that lets Ahsoka be like, all right, time for me to get out of here. So she and Rafa end up escaping, and it's like, oh, well, this is great. They've made their grand escape. And it's like, they get out of the prison, they go through the city. I thought they should have, they had the scene where it's like, hey, let me out, so that the aliens could basically help Trace out. And I was like, they should have just been running down, like pushing all the buttons, like everybody's free, because that's like the best way to escape. And, everyone would fight back. Not that who is who and stuff, it's a bunch of criminals, but it's like, you're trying to survive. Why not do it? So, they end up letting those random two dudes out, and who knows what happened with them. That was it. But they end up escaping. They have the crazy moment where Ahsoka has to make like the super force leap, and then of course that brings up even more suspicion from Rafa. It was like, how'd you do that? And it's like, oh, I'm more less athletic than I seem. And it's like, she was like, well, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, we don't have time, we're getting shot at. So of course they're leaning, getting closer and closer to the truth. And of course we had the big moment in this episode before Rafa was even taken to begin with, where we find out exactly why they don't like the Jedi, and they don't really like interacting and dealing with other people in general. And it's of course because there was some crazy situation, a Jedi did something, and it kind of just didn't care. It was like, the few versus the many type of thing. It was like, I had to make a choice. May the force be with you. See you, kids. And then they fly off into the sky, and that was it. And they just left them, no help, no nothing. It was just like, my bad. Force. And then they're gone, and that was it. And I'm pretty sure I know who the Jedi is, because they mentioned that she had like jet black robes and like the green skin. So I think I know who that is. I just suck at names, so only like as far as like the other Jedi members, I remember like Kit Fisto, Plo Koon, and Adigala, and that's it. And then like the regular main Jedi and stuff. So I'm pretty sure visually I know who that was that they described, but I don't know her actual name. But I like the episode for sure. But it was interesting, them going through that journey, and then they introduce the Mandalorians, which I thought was great. Once again, I'm pretty sure I know who that is. Suck at names, because the only person I remember is Satine. She's the only actual like Mandalorian who I remember all the time, and that's of course because of her tie to Obi-Wan. And I remember Death Watch. Like I remember the name of the group. It's just the specific people that I don't ever remember. So they run past someone. I was like, oh, that's a Mandalorian. This should be interesting. And I thought for sure they were introducing the next part of the storyline. They were just going to end up escaping. They would probably have to deal with that a little later in the season, but for now, they would just escape naturally. And that's what I thought was going to happen. And then it was like, nope, they got captured. It was like Trace and Rafa got captured. Ahsoka had to do some hiding, and then she jumps in. She's about to save them, but it was actually a trap, and all three of them get captured. And in my head, I'm like, okay, so we have the Mandalorian that they run past, two other Mandalorians. They all look super cool, by the way. Like the clothes that they had looked really sweet to me. So they're watching, and it's like, I think that's the Jedi that I met on whatever planet, she said. And it ultimately just ends in, let's keep an eye on her. She could be useful. And then they just get in prison again. I thought for sure it was going to be like, okay, that's how they escaped. They were like this close. They saw where the ship was. They were about to get to it. And then, they end up being captured again. And they're literally back where they started. And I was like, huh, you don't see that too often. Like, there was a whole journey, and then, boom, they got captured again. And it's one of those weird things where it's like, weird. Like, was there a point? Definitely, because they ran into the Mandalorians. That was really the main point of the whole episode. And they got a little bit closer, as far as like, Rafa and Ahsoka, where it's like, they seem, looks can be deceiving, as even Rafa said, but it's like, they do seem to be getting along a little bit better in this episode. So I enjoyed it for that. I just, it was an action episode, so of course that was in itself was entertaining. It was a really cool chase. Ahsoka had a great fight scene where she goes in and she just beats all those people up. That was a great scene. I love that one. I thought that was pretty sweet. And of course, she still hides the Force throughout the episode. The super jump, using the Force to like bring the guards out so that Trace and Rafa can get shots in on them, stuff like that. So they're getting closer and closer to it. We have the tragic story. So that part it seems like they're keeping as far as the generic thing where it's like once you're hiding something, the people find out, they're mad at you about it. Who knows? That could be legitimately why they stopped talking. It could actually be the end, and there is no fixing it, which will kind of change it up a little bit. But I would assume they're gonna fix it. But they're gonna find out she's a Jedi, especially with the Mandalorian stuff. Like they're gonna rescue her, and it's kind of like the Hondo thing I mentioned, where it's like if he was in this, the first thing he would have said was like, "Oh, my Jedi friend," and he would have blown her cover. I feel like that's what's gonna happen with the Mandalorians. They're gonna be like, I know you know me, and it's going to be hard to dodge why this super random young woman, was dealing with the Mandalorians on their home planet, stuff like that. Or, well, I guess she wasn't on their home planet yet, but dealing with Mandalorians in general. So it's going to be like, what's the deal? Something's going on with you. So they're just getting closer and closer to the truth of finding out that she's a Jedi. But I still enjoyed the episode, even though it was very surprising that by the end, they legitimately went full circle and they escaped prison, went through this whole chase, didn't even know it, but they, interacted with the Mandalorians, and then boom, they've been in prison again because the Mandalorians are like, we're doing something else. She could be here on official Jedi business, could be an issue, could be a help. Let's find out later. And then boom, they're just, like I said, back to square one. So that's not how I thought that this episode was going to go, but I certainly enjoyed it. I thought it was definitely good. I don't know what it is with Ahsoka's episodes in particular, but for some reason, once again, just like the first one where Ahsoka was introduced, I noticed a lot of visual stuff. Like, I know the show just looks a million times better than it did in the last season, which, of course, was years ago. So they've had time to make the show look even cooler. But something about it just looked really good. Like, just this whole episode. And maybe it's just the aesthetic is more of the, like, Coruscant side of Star Wars, where it's more of the text, the grittier, the gritty tech stuff compared to what we had with the first couple episodes where it was like a lot of open vistas and it was a lot of browns and greens and stuff because they were on that. So it was like, it wasn't necessarily a desert planet, but there was a lot of like open land and fields and stuff like that. And then it was specifically like foresty and stuff like that. So it was either one or the other. And I was like, okay, yeah, that's kind of what we get in a lot of the big battle episodes. And this was just like streets, it was just this Star Wars sort of city streets. And I was like, something about it, the way they utilize the colors and stuff like that. And I think pretty much all these episodes take place at night, as where the other episodes kind of go throughout the day. So, some scenes are during the day, some scenes are during the night. With this, it's mostly been, I can't technically say it's mostly been nighttime because technically when they were underground, it always looks like it's nighttime. So I can't say that it was actually nighttime, but I think that's just the aesthetic. Like the last episode was definitely like mostly daylight because they flew up to space and they, hyperspeed, all that stuff. So this one kind of went back to where the first episode was, and something about it just catches my eye where like when it's dark all the time, the way they kind of mess with the lighting and how the buildings look and how they interact with things, it's just such a different visual flair to the show. So, excuse me. I feel like that just stood out to me again in this episode. I was just like, that's weird. I didn't feel that in the last one, but it's something about it when it's them just kind of walking on the street and stuff. It just visually looks different. And maybe that's why, because they aren't flying past a million things and stuff like that. So it's so much more refined because it's like, all right, we specifically have them walking past maybe 3 or 4 people per scene. And then it's just blocks and stuff. It's like they can be super detailed because it's the characters moving through, but everything else is just like a cool structure and this and that. So everything's able to look a lot better because they don't have to do as much work on character design or have, them flying into space, a trillion ships. Like we have to do all these tiny dots for all these little ships. We have to have, who knows how many hours of design for like the top down view of the city and stuff like that. So there's a lot that's taken out when they don't travel through space and they're going to like, 2 planets or 3 planets in one episode, stuff like that. So when it's like honed in, it seems like the quality like jumps a millionfold. And that's probably why I noticed the difference from the action episodes, because they have a million droids and they have these grand vistas with all these different types of planets, and it's battle episodes, so the characters are doing all these different moves. And in this, even though of course they were running through and doing a million different things, it still wasn't on as grand of a scale. Like none of the shots were really like the giant shots where it's like you see for miles and miles out. It's like they're in a cramped little city space or, escaping a prison. Everything's fairly tight knit. So you don't have to design as much per scene. And I feel like and I could be wrong, and I just, for whatever reason, it's just this episode and the other one that I notice it, but I feel like that has to be it. They just have to do less work, so they put more detail into all the stationary stuff that we keep seeing. So that's just how it looks for me. I just thought the visuals were good. Sorry, normal sick, not like, sick, pandemic sick. Oh, not even sick, just natural phlegm, stupid allergies. I hate it. And then, of course, being indoors doesn't help because I can't really get out to get all the sunlight to, like, burn all my, seasonal allergies away. So it's been really weird just being, like, not really sick, but just, like, stuck with my, like, minute cough for a minute. So that's weird. That's why I keep coughing. Sorry. But I enjoyed the episode. Like I said, the visuals just really stood out for this one. And I'm very excited. Mandalorians come in. That's my favorite part of all the Star Wars. I want to see when Ahsoka gets her lightsaber, but that's still probably going to be another couple episodes from now. But this one, I definitely enjoyed. I thought the action was good for sure. We got introduced to the Mandalorians, so that's going to take us into the next phase of whatever they're doing with this final season and everything that's going to be happening in it. So always great, to see that stuff. So I'm looking forward to it. But all in all, would love to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, least favorite parts about it. And I would love to know how you think the ladies are going to be getting off this planet. Like, what is going to happen with the Mandalorians that kind of pushes us into the next phase of the story. I'm not sure how it's going to happen. I don't know if the Mandalorians are going to be dealing with the Pikes. And it makes sense that they would because the Pikes are so powerful and, the Mandalorians are like, they're, even when there are few, they are very powerful. So they, might be going in and deal with the Pikes anyway. So they might make some crazy deal like, give us the Jedi and stuff like that. That could be even how, Trace and Rafa figure that stuff out. So I feel like that's probably how it's going to go. Otherwise, it would be like a weird public execution type deal. And that doesn't seem to make much sense. Aside from the fact that in this episode, it was just a trap anyway. I don't think they're really going to do that. Like, their whole thing is like, we want to know where the spice is. So we're going to keep you in prison and we're just going to torture you, but not actually kill you. So we'll see how that plays out. But we'll love to know your predictions on it. And of course, like I said, I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please put your comments down in the comment section below. And of course, thanks for watching.